Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Mingus,
Here.
Sutherland,
Here.
Mayor Call.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, as we've recently passed the 9/11 anniversary, please comfort those who lost someone that day. Lift up our first responders and the heroes of that day. We ask that you look over those fighting their own battles as a result of that day. Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to guide us, and we give thanks for this day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 3rd, 2019, and the minutes of the closed meeting executive session held on September 3rd, 2019, be approved as printed.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank
you,
you.
Commissioner. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Mingus,
Aye.
Sutherland,
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. This evening, I have two proclamations. First, whereas the Knights of Columbus are dedicated to works of charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism, and whereas the intellectual disabilities affect 1 out of every 10 families in America, and whereas the Knights of Columbus are committed to enhancing the quality of life of people with intellectual and physical disabilities throughout the state of Illinois, and whereas the City of East Peoria recognizes all the voluntary services provided to the citizens of East Peoria, and whereas the Knights of Columbus raise funds and hand out Tootsie Rolls at local retailers, whereas the money raised helps to significantly enhance the quality of life for people with disabilities. Now therefore, I, John P. Call, Mayor of the City of East Peoria, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2019 through September 28, 2019 as Support Citizens with Intellectual Disabilities Week in the City of East Peoria, and call upon citizens to recognize and support the Knights of Columbus in the most worthwhile and humanitarian effort for their 50th annual Drive for Children and Adults with Intellectual Disabilities and their families. And with us this evening is Jim Weigel. Jim, you mind sharing a few words?
Sure. Well, I guess I'll be brief in the sense that all the funds we raise stay in what I like to refer to as the East Peoria Metroplex. And the bulk of the money, we kind of spread it around, but the bulk of the money goes to 3 special ed districts here in East Peoria. I should have this better memorized. The Central Illinois Writing Therapy, Heart of Illinois Downs Association, SEPCO over in Peoria County, and the Children's Home on Knoxville, and also the Schramm Center down in Pekin. So those are where we spread the money around. So it's, and we've done well, but you just never know. Every year is different, so we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. So.
Well, we're going to try to help you out. He's got Tootsie Rolls, so everyone get your dollars ready, and I'd like to hand this off to you, Jim. So we also want to recognize the fact that this is Jim's 15th year of doing this, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There you go, sir. Yep. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very welcome. I love these things.
He needs it. It's kind of like the Snickers.
Getting hangry.
So as Jim is making his rounds, I'll go on with the second proclamation. Whereas all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories require the use of car seats for children traveling in motor vehicles, and whereas car seat laws were enacted because they save lives and prevent injuries, and whereas in 2017, of the 675 children, 12 and younger, who were killed riding in passenger vehicles, over 1 in 3 were not in a car seat, booster seat, or wearing a seat belt. And whereas injury potentially could have been avoided had these children been buckled up, and whereas educating parents and caregivers about the best ways to keep children safe while traveling in cars, no matter how short or long the trip, can work toward eliminating these preventable deaths and injuries. And whereas parents and caregivers are encouraged to participate in a car seat safety check, such as the ones conducted from 1 until 4 p.m., the first Wednesday of the month at the East Peoria Fire Department Central Station, to make sure their children are in the right car seats for their age and size, and that the seats are installed correctly. Now, therefore, I, John P. Call, Mayor of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, do hereby proclaim September 15th through the 21st, 2019, as Child Passenger Safety Week, and call upon all citizens to help reduce injuries and the tragic loss of life by buckling up their children every trip, every time. Chief, anything you want to add to that?
No, sir, just on our behalf, the number of people that come in and visit us is something that is pretty enlightening, and we're really happy to do what we do and suggest that any family and friends that do have small children, please stop and see us. That's what we're there for.
Yeah, it's our fire department's done that for a number of years, and it's a great benefit, not just to citizens of East Peoria. We get residents from other communities that come in, and very worthwhile, can save a life and injury. So take care of your kids, and when in doubt, go get it checked out. It's free. It's a great service. So thank you, and thank the department for what they do. Very good. Any public comment that anyone would like to recognize or address the council on an agenda item? So if you're here to speak about anything listed on the agenda, please feel free to step up to the podium and share your thoughts. Norm?
Hi, Norm Sales. I'm going to give my final futile effort on recreational pot. I think it's wrong. I don't think the city should be involved in it. One of my biggest concerns is we can't keep vaping supplies or vaping materials out of grade school kids. They can't legally buy it. So my concern is, how are we going to keep recreational marijuana? By doing the actions that we're going to be doing tonight, we're supporting it and making it more available to the next generation. And I encourage each one of you sitting on this council to go home and tell your young kids that you favor recreational marijuana, because in essence, by voting to tax it and they allow the sale of it in East Peoria, that's exactly what you're doing. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else wish to address the council on an agenda item, please come forward. Seeing no one. Very good. Consent agenda. Any objections? Hearing none. With that, Commissioner Hill.
Mr. Mayor, I moved to adopt a consent agenda consisting of items numbered 1 through 5. Item number 1, adoption of resolution number 1920-061, resolution to approve payment of scheduled bills listed on Schedule 9 in the amount of $1,398,612.42. Item number 2, adoption of resolution number 1920-057 on its second reading, resolution requesting permission for temporary closure of state-maintained roadways for a public event for the Festival of Lights Parade on November 16th, 2019. Item number 3, adoption of resolution number 1920-054 on its second reading, resolution authorizing and approving the slip lining of 955 linear foot portion of sanitary sewer main located on Hill Road under the creek by Hare Construction, Inc. in the amount of $31,935.50. Item number 4, adoption of Resolution 1920-055 on its second reading. Resolution approving the repair of sanitary sewer trunk line on East Faulkner Road by G.A. Rich in the amount of $36,000. Item number 5, adoption of Resolution 1920-056 on its second reading. Resolution accepting change order for the city's sanitary sewer system upgrade project Phase A through C construction project, change order number 1 in the amount of $52,894 as listed on the agenda for this meeting to be considered by omnibus vote.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that items numbered 1 through 5 listed on the consent agenda be hereby approved and adopted, that items numbered 2 and 5, having been read once by their title and having laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection, be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have 3 items tonight. Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4453 hereto attached, an ordinance imposing municipal cannabis retailers occupation tax of 3% on cannabis retail dispensaries in the city of East Peoria, having been read once by its title and having laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection, be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
This is the case that in order for us to be able to tax in the year 2020, the tax amount has to be into the Illinois Department of Revenue before or by September 30th or before October 1st. And that is what this is.
Any other comments or discussion from the council? Commissioner Sutherland?
No, I've already said my piece.
Okay. Anyone else? This is obviously the second reading, and we will be imposing a 3% tax on the sale of recreational marijuana. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
No.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
By 4 ayes and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4454 hereto attached, an ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of East Peoria regarding adult use recreational cannabis businesses to define and permit adult use cannabis facilities as a conditional use in B3 and M1 zoning districts, be read at length by the clerk, and that said ordinance number 4454 be accepted on its first reading and hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. Morgan?
Whereas the City of East Peoria, Illinois has enacted a zoning code for establishing municipal zoning regulations for the purpose of improving and protecting the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare of the people and its citizens, and whereas the State of Illinois enacted the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, Public Act 101-0027, effective June 25, 2019, which pertain to the possession, use, cultivation, transportation, and dispensing of adult-use cannabis, the Act. Whereas pursuant to the Act, the city may enact reasonable zoning ordinances not in conflict with the Act that regulate recreational cannabis business establishments in the city, including rules adopted to govern the time, place, manner, and number of recreational cannabis business establishments in the city, to regulate the minimum distance limitations between cannabis business establishments in the city, and to regulate locations within the city that are deemed sensitive in relation to cannabis business establishments doing business in the city. And whereas the city has initiated an amendment to the city's zoning code, Title V of the City Code, to review and consider additional amendments to the zoning code for the regulation of adult use recreational cannabis facilities and businesses within the city of East Peoria. And whereas the city has also initiated an amendment to the city's zoning code, Title V of the City Code, to regulate the use of adult use recreational cannabis at businesses and facilities within the city, including at recreational cannabis business establishments doing business in the city. And whereas the City Zoning Board of Appeals conducted a public hearing as required by law on September 9th, 2019 in regards to the proposed amendments to the city's zoning code pertaining to adult use recreational cannabis businesses and use of adult use recreational cannabis in the city. And whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals has recommended approval of the proposed amendments to the city's zoning code after holding the required public hearing and then considering the proposed amendments to the city's zoning code as set forth herein. And whereas the city council hereby finds that it is in the best interest of the city and its citizens that the zoning code regulations set forth herein be established for regulating adult use recreational cannabis businesses and use of adult use recreational cannabis in the city. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, the recital set forth above, and all facts and statements contained therein are found to be true and correct, and are hereby incorporated and adopted as part of this ordinance. Section 2, Title 5, Chapter 2, Section 3, definitions of the City, East Peoria City Code is hereby amended by adding the following definitions. Adult use cannabis business establishment means an adult use cannabis cultivation center, craft grower, processing organization, infuser organization, dispensing organization, or transporting organization. Adult use cannabis craft grower means a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Agriculture to cultivate, dry, cure, and package cannabis and perform other necessary activities to make cannabis available for sale at a dispensing organization or use at a processing organization pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Adult use cannabis cultivation center means a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Agriculture to cultivate, process, transport, and perform necessary activities to provide cannabis and cannabis-infused products to licensed cannabis business establishments pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Adult use cannabis dispensing organization means a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation to acquire cannabis from licensed cannabis business establishments for the purpose of selling or dispensing cannabis, cannabis-infused products, cannabis seeds, paraphernalia, or related supplies to purchasers or to qualified registered medical cannabis patients and caregivers pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027. As it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Adult use cannabis infuser organization or infuser means a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Agriculture to directly incorporate cannabis or cannabis concentrate into a product formulation to produce a cannabis-infused product pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Adult use cannabis processing organization or processor means a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Agriculture to either extract constituent chemicals or compounds to produce cannabis concentrate or incorporate cannabis or cannabis concentrate into a product formulation to produce a cannabis product pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Adult use cannabis transporting organization or transporter means an organization or business that is licensed by Illinois Department of Agriculture to transport cannabis on behalf of a cannabis business establishment or a community college licensed under the Community College Cannabis Vocational Training Pilot Program pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. CRTA means the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, PA 101-0027, as it may be amended from time to time and regulations promulgated thereunder. Section 3, Title 5, Chapter 7.1, Adult Use Recreational Cannabis is hereby added to the East Peoria City Code as follows. Chapter 7.1, Adult Use Recreational Cannabis, Section 5-7.1-1, Purpose and Applicability, 5-7.1-2, Conditional Use, 5-7.1-3, Adult Use Cannabis Craft Grower, 5-7.1-4 Adult Use Cannabis Cultivation Center, 5-7.1-5 Adult Use Cannabis Dispensing Organization, 5-7.1-6 Adult Use Cannabis Infuser Organization, 5-7.1-7 Adult Use Cannabis Processor Organization, 5-7.1-8 Adult Use Cannabis Transporter Organization, 5-7.1-9 Co-location of Adult Use Cannabis Business Establishments, 5-7.1-10 On-site use or consumption prohibited, 5-7.1-11 Security and other improvements, 5-7.1-12 Application procedure. 5-7.1-1 Purpose and applicability. It is the intent and purpose of this chapter to provide regulations regarding the cultivation, processing, dispensing, and transporting of adult use cannabis occurring within the corporate limits of the city. Such facilities shall comply with all regulations provided in the CRTA and the regulations provided in this chapter. In the event that the CRTA is amended, the more restrictive of the state or the city regulations as established in this chapter shall apply. 5-7.1-2 Conditional use. An adult use cannabis business establishment facility shall require approval as a conditional use in the respective zoning use district in which such facility is to be located. In determining compliance with this chapter and eligibility as a conditional use, the following standards shall be evaluated for the proposed adult use cannabis facility based on the entirety of the circumstances affecting the particular property for which the conditional use is sought in the context of the existing and intended future use of the adjacent and nearby properties. A, impact of the proposed facility on existing or planned uses located within the vicinity of the subject property. B, proposed structure in which the facility will be located, including co-tenancy in a multi-tenant building, total square footage, security installations and security plan, and building code compliance. C, hours of operation, anticipated number of customers/employees. D, anticipated parking demand, available parking, private parking supply, and parking requirements established in Chapter 7 of this title. E, anticipated traffic generation in the context of adjacent roadway capacity and access to such roadways. F, site designation, including access points and internal site circulation. G, proposed signage plan. H, compliance with all other requirements of this specific section in this chapter for the particular type of adult use cannabis business establishment that is being proposed as applicable. I, other criteria determined to be necessary to assess compliance with the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-3 Adult use cannabis craft grower. In those zoning use districts in which an adult use cannabis craft grower may be located, the proposed facility must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary, or secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential care home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational or trade centers shall not be classified as public or private school for purposes of this section. B, facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than as authorized by the CRTA. C, for the purpose of determining required parking, adult use cannabis craft grower to be classified as restaurant or nightclub per section 5-7-6, schedule of parking requirements, business uses. Provided, however, that the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of the analysis completed through section 5-7.1-2. D, no more than one adult use cannabis craft grower shall be granted a conditional use under this chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. E, the adult use cannabis craft grower shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including the CRTA and provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-4 Adult Use Cannabis Cultivation Center. In those zoning use districts in which an adult use cannabis cultivation center may be located, the proposed facility must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary, secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential care home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational or trade centers shall not be classified as a public or private school for purposes of this section. B, facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than as authorized by the CRTA. C, for purposes of determining required parking, adult use cannabis cultivation center shall be classified as manufacturing or industrial use per section 5-7-6. Schedule of parking requirements, industrial uses. Provided, however, the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of the analysis completed through section 5-7.1-2. D, no more than one adult use cannabis cultivation center shall be granted a conditional use under this chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. E, The adult use cannabis cultivation center shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including the CRTA and the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-5, adult use cannabis dispensing organization. No zoning use districts in which an adult use cannabis dispensing organization may be located. The proposed facility must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary, secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational trades or vocational or trade centers shall not be classified as a public or private school for purposes of this section. B, at least 75% of the floor area of any tenant space occupied by a dispensing organization shall be devoted to the activities of the dispensing organization as required by the Act. C, facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than as required by the CRTA. D, for purposes of determining required parking, adult use cannabis dispensing organization shall be classified as retail sales not specifically designated per section 5-7-6, Schedule of Parking Requirements, Business Uses, provided, however, that the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of analysis completed through Section 5-7.1-2. E, no more than 3 adult-use cannabis dispensing organizations shall be granted a conditional use under this chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. F, the hours of operation for an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization shall not be earlier than 8 a.m. and not later than 7 p.m. G, no person under the age of 21 shall be allowed to enter an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization. H, no person shall reside in or permit any person to reside in an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization. I, no outdoor seating area shall be permitted at an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization. J, no drive-through services or sales shall be permitted at in an adult-use cannabis dispensing organization. K, the adult-use cannabis dispensing organization shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including CRTA and the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-6, adult-use cannabis infuser organization. In those zoning districts in which an adult-use cannabis infuser organization may be located, the proposed facilities must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary, secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential care home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational or trade centers shall not be classified as a private or public or private school for purposes of this section. B, at least 75% of the floor area of any tenant space occupied by an infusing organization shall be devoted to the activities of the infusing organization as authorized by the CRTA. Facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than as authorized by the CRTA. C, for purposes of determining required parking, adult-use cannabis infuser organization shall be classified as manufacturer or industrial use per section 5-7-6, Schedule of Parking Requirements, Industrial Uses, provided, however, the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of the analysis completed through Section 5-7.1-2. D, no more than 1 adult-use cannabis infuser organization shall be granted a conditional use under this chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. E, the adult-use cannabis infuser organization shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including the CRTA and the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-7, adult-use cannabis processing organization. In those zoning districts in which an adult-use cannabis processing organization may be located, the proposed city facility must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary, secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential care home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational or trade centers shall not be classified as public or private school for purposes of this section. B, at least 75% of the floor area of any tenant space occupied by a processing organization shall be devoted to the activities of the processing organization as authorized by the CRTA. Facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than and as authorized by the Act. C, for purposes of determining required parking, adult-use cannabis processing organization shall be classified as manufacturing or industrial use per section 5-7-6, Schedule of Parking Requirements, Industrial Uses, provided, however, the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of the analysis completed through Section 5-7.1-2. D, no more than 1 adult-use cannabis processing organization shall be granted a conditional use under this chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. E, the adult-use cannabis processing organization shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including CRTA and the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-8, adult use cannabis transporting organization. In those zoning districts in which an adult use transporting organization may be located, the proposed facility must comply with the following. A, facility may not be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private nursery school, preschool, primary or secondary school, daycare center, licensed daycare home, or licensed residential care home as measured from building to building. Learning centers and vocational trade centers shall not be classified as a public or private school for purpose of this section. B, the transporting organization shall be sole use of the tenant space in which it is located. Facility may not conduct any sales or distribution of cannabis other than is authorized by the CRTA. C, for purposes of determining required parking, adult use cannabis or transport organization shall be classified as manufacturing or industrial use per section 5-7-6, Schedule of Parking Requirements, Industrial Uses. Provided, however, the city may require that additional parking be provided as a result of the analysis completed through section 5-7.1-2. D, no more than 3 adult use cannabis transporting organizations shall be granted a conditional use under the chapter or otherwise permitted to operate in the city. E, the adult use cannabis transporting organization shall operate the facility in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including CRTA and the provisions of this chapter. 5-7.1-9, co-location of adult use cannabis business establishments. The city may approve the co-location of adult use cannabis dispensing organization with an adult use cannabis craft grower center or an adult use cannabis infuser organization or both, subject to the provisions of the CRTA and the conditional use criteria set forth in this chapter. In a co-location, the floor space requirements of section 5-7.1-5B and 5-7.1-6B shall not apply, but the co-located establishment shall be the sole use of the tenant space. 5-7.1-10, on-site use or consumption prohibited. No on-site use or consumption of cannabis shall be permitted at any adult use cannabis business establishment in the city or at any other retail or service business, private club, or similar organization location in the city. Additionally, no on-site consumption shall be permitted of food, beverages, or other products sold at an adult use cannabis business establishment in the city. 5-7.1-11, security and other improvements. Petitioner shall install building enhancements such as security cameras, lighting, or other improvements as set forth in the conditional use permit to ensure the safety of employees and customers of the adult use cannabis business establishments as well as its environs. Said improvements shall be determined based on the specific characteristics of the floor plan for an adult use cannabis business establishment and on-site and the site on which it is located consistent with the requirements of the CRTA. 5-7.1-12, application procedure. An application for a conditional use under this chapter shall be processed in the same manner and with the same review and approval process as required for a special use under section 5-11-10 of this title, except the standards set forth in 5-7.1-2 of this chapter shall apply in lieu of the special use standards set forth in 5-11-10F for special uses. Further, the other provisions of section 5-11-10 shall apply to a conditional use granted under this chapter except as otherwise provided herein. The application for a conditional use filed by a petitioner shall include an affidavit affirming compliance with the applicable section of this chapter, all requirements of the CRTA, and any stipulations or conditions imposed during the review and approval process. Section 4, Title 5, Chapter 9, Section 4F, pertaining to conditional uses in B3, Business Service District is hereby added to the East Peoria City Code as follows. 5-9-4, B3, Business Service District. F, conditional uses. The following conditional uses may be permitted in specific situations in accordance with the procedure outlined in Chapter 7.1 of this title as appropriate. 1, additional use cannabis dispensing organization. 2, adult use cannabis infuser organization. 3, adult use cannabis processing organization. 4, adult use cannabis transporting organization. Section 5, Title 5, Chapter 10, Section 2F, pertaining to conditional uses in the M1 Limited Manufacturing District is hereby added to the East Peoria City Code as follows. 5-10-2, M1 Manufacturing District Limited. F, conditional uses. The following conditional uses may be permitted in specific situations in accordance with the procedures outlined in Chapter 7.1 of this title as appropriate. 1, adult use cannabis dispensing organization. 2, adult use cannabis infuser organization. 3, adult use cannabis processing organization. 4, adult use cannabis transporting organization. 5, adult use cannabis craft grower. 6, adult use cannabis cultivation center. Section 6. If any provision of this ordinance or application thereof to any person or circumstances is ruled unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions or applications of this ordinance that can be given effect without the invalid application or provision. And each invalid provision or invalid application of this ordinance is severable. Section 7, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its passage and approval as required by law. Section 8, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the East Peoria City Clerk, and said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future and in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 9, this ordinance is in addition to all other ordinances on the subject, and shall be construed therewith, excepting as to that part in direct conflict with any other ordinance. In the event of such conflict, the provisions hereof shall govern. Section 10, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and any period of publication in the manner provided by law.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, thank you. Okay. As you've just heard, that is the zoning changes related to this, and I don't think I need to state it again, but the state of Illinois has made adult use marijuana legal as of January 1st, 2020. It actually passed in June of 2019, but it's effective. So even no matter what we would do here, the only choices the municipality really has is we can regulate it, we can restrict where it's where the businesses are located, we can restrict the hours, we can restrict whether they whether it's consumed on the premises of the dispensary, but we cannot stop adult use marijuana use in the city of East Peoria, regardless of whether we dispense it or not. It will be here in East Peoria, as well as in the local or surrounding communities. It will be legal, even though this is a controversial subject, and we'll have division of opinions on this matter. That is what we're doing here. These are the ordinance changes to restrict and regulate where those different types of adult use businesses may be.
Any other discussion or comments from the council?
I'll say, Mayor, that obviously this is a difficult decision to walk through many different things. As Commissioner Hill stated, we don't have the right, ability, authority to say that we won't allow it in the city of East Peoria. So our only option is to decide whether or not we will allow the sale in East Peoria. We have already allowed the sale in East Peoria on medical purposes, and to my knowledge have not had a significant number of instances relating to that business. I appreciate all the comments that I've heard from people. I have received some messages from people stating that they would rather us vote no. Also speaking with some were confused and surprised when I told them that the city could not bar it from the city. Having said that, I'm not going to give percentages, but at least to me, an overwhelming number of people who have expressed interest to me would rather the city support the allowance of sale in East Peoria. So for that purpose, I am going to vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments?
I'd just say one thing. I'll echo what Commissioner Decker, Commissioner Hill have said. They did a good job of stating that no matter what we decide, recreational marijuana will be legal in East Peoria. We can't stop that. Have had correspondence through email and other means of communication from some people who I have a lot of respect for, who have urged us to vote no on this, and I respect that. But I do think it's important to note that the city of East Peoria has been, I don't know if cutting edge is the right word, that's probably not the right word, but we've been open to alternative means of revenue in the past. I remember I was younger when the boat came here, and there were a lot of people that were concerned about that, concerned about crime or concerned about what that might bring. And some of the concerns that I've heard regarding recreational marijuana are the same as that. $100 million later, we still have the boat, and this city has not raised your property tax. And I don't know what the exact number is, but I know it's been for quite a few years. We have not raised our property tax rate. And a lot of the reason for that is because we have looked at alternative means of revenue. And I think that that's important to note. That's going to be the primary reason that I support this, is we're going to make money on it, and we're going to be able to do some things that we may not be able to do without it. So I'm going to support it, and primarily for that reason.
Very good, Commissioner Mingus. Commissioner Sutherland?
Well,
I've heard from a few people, and maybe because I've already been against it, I haven't heard anything positive. No one's asked me to vote yes. So I can't support this. If that's our theory, that it's legal in this state, then let's have a strip club. I mean, let's just bring it on into East Peoria. I mean, if that's the theory of why we're doing things or not doing things, and it's the money grab, if you notice, the state wanted us to accept the money. And if we didn't do this, then we wasn't going to get any money to train our police and our fire on this. But it's still going to be legal in this state. So obviously, it's a money grab. I just don't want any part of it.
Okay, there you have it. And I know we've all heard opinions on both sides of the aisle. You know, at the end of the day, it's legal. It's going to be here whether people accept that or not. It's here right now, illegally. The state will make it lawful January 1. So with this new law, it creates additional burdens and responsibilities on the city. So for anyone to say, how can I go home and look my kids in the face tonight and tell them that I supported what I will support tonight, it's very easy. I have a personal opinion, and then I have a job as mayor. And at the end of the day, we have responsibilities that we have to look out for. Whether people accept it or not, it's going to be here. And we will be dealing with it one way or the other. I know in the public forum, it was mentioned that 8% that goes back to local governments for crime prevention, enforcement, things of that sort. Read the 610-page law, and I'll help you find it. Page 413, I'll make it easy for you. It talks about how the funds are appropriated. That 8% isn't 8% of the total sales generated that go into the state coffers. It's 8% of something. That's like third on the list. Read the first two, and then I'd like to see anyone come back and tell me that we're going to get all this cash flow to help offset the cost to train our public safety officials. So it's not that cut and dry, folks. It really isn't. I will be supporting this. 4 years ago, I supported the medical marijuana. Not one problem in 4 years we've had with that facility. Not one problem. So I understand the reservations, I understand the concerns. Personal opinions aside, it's coming, it's going to be here, and quite honestly, I look at it as a responsibility. As mayor, I will be supporting this tonight. We do have one other ordinance, 4456, and I apologize, I know Morgan wasn't looking forward to reading these at length, but there's a reason why we're doing it all in one fell swoop. So we have one other ordinance that applies to this. The first one was imposing the 3% tax. This ordinance, the second one, 4454, basically regulates the adult use cannabis business. And just for the record, I know a lot of people haven't really delved into the law to see what it is, but there is no public consumption. So this misnomer that, wow, all these people are going to be running around just smoking it wherever, that's not the case. You know, part of what we've discussed as a council, one of the things the law allows you to do locally is whether or not you allow on-site consumption. This council is pretty clear in the direction that they're not going to allow that. So this piece of the ordinance, this ordinance here, is basically, when you look through it, it does mention how many dispensaries we're going to allow, cultivation centers, craft growers, infusers, processor, and the transport organization. So this component here that we will be approving, I suspect, based on the vote, basically covers all that. So for anyone that didn't catch what Morgan read, I encourage you to read up on it, and you'll see that this business is going to be highly regulated from the top down. So I will be supporting it. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
No.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more item tonight. Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4455 here to attached, an ordinance authorizing a special use for property located at 225 Edgewood Drive in the city of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, to to allow placement of 2 accessory structures, storage sheds on the property, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
This particular case went through the ZBA, and there's a property listed at 225 Edgewood. And what it is based on the uniqueness of the terrain of this property, based on the natural coverings, this is actually covering 2 accessory structures, one which was already there, and this special use was worded to pick up both structures. And because of the unique terrain of this property, they're being allowed to be what's considered to be in the front yard. And so, again, based on the uniqueness of this property, we recommend that this be approved.
Very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Commissioner Decker.
I have 2 items, Mayor. Sure I'm doing the correct one first. All right. First of all, ordinance number 4457. Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4457 hereto attached, an ordinance proposing approval of the creation of a special service area and setting a public hearing for reviewing the use of a special service area to fund improvements to access Road 6 in the city of East Peoria, to levy a property tax against those properties benefited by the road improvements, and to incur debt for the financing of road improvement project. Be read at length by the clerk, and it is said that ordinance number 4457 be accepted on its first reading and be hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Whereas pursuant to the Special Service Area Tax Law 35 ILCS 200-27-5 et sec, as supplemented and amended from time to time the SSA Act, the City Council, corporate authorities of the City of East Peoria, Tasman County, Illinois, the city, does hereby determine that it is advisable in the best interest of the city to initiate the process and procedures for proposing and creating a special service area, SSA, for the project hereafter described, and to set a public hearing date as required under the SSA Act, to review the proposed creation of an SSA for the project and to review related matters as set forth herein. And whereas property owners with businesses located along the north end of Access Road 6 in East Peoria have approached city officials seeking the creation of an SSA to repair and improve Access Road 6 off of Illinois Route 116 North Main Street, cleaning the adjacent stormwater drainage areas and sewers along Access Road 6 for the benefit of their businesses located on Access Road 6 as shown on Exhibit A attached here to the project, and that the city adopt SSA financing for the proposed project. And whereas pursuant to Sections 27-25 and 27-30 of the SSA Act, before establishing an SSA, the city is required to hold a public hearing not less than 60 days after the adoption of an ordinance proposing the establishment of an SSA, while providing notice of the public hearing by mailing to the property owners who will be impacted by the SSA and by publication. Whereas pursuant to Sections 27-40 and 27-45 of the SSA Act, before extending and levying an ad valorem property tax against properties benefited by an SSA, the SSA tax, and before incurring debt or issuing bonds for financing a special service project in an SSA, the city is also required to hold a public hearing not less than 60 days after the adoption of an ordinance proposing the establishment of an SSA, while providing notice of the public hearing by mailing to the property owners who will be impacted by the SSA and by publication. And whereas the property owners requesting the SSA for the project own the properties that will comprise the SSA, as such properties are described in Exhibit B attached hereto and incorporated by reference to the properties. And the corporate authorities hereby find that the properties form a compact and contiguous area within the corporate limits of the city that will be benefited by the project and therefore qualify for designation as an SSA under the SSA Act. And whereas the corporate authorities further find that the project qualifies as a special service project under the SSA Act that can be financed as provided by the SSA Act. And whereas the corporate authorities further determine that the revenue from the SSA tax levied against the property shall be used solely for the project special services and to pay toward an indebtedness undertaken by the city for financing the project special services. And whereas after holding the public hearing, the corporate authorities can approve the creation of the proposed SSA for the project while also approving the levy of the SSA tax on the properties and debt to finance the completion of the project as provided in the SSA Act. And whereas upon the creation of the proposed SSA for the project, the SSA shall be designated Special Service Area 2019A, SSA 2019A. And whereas the corporate authorities hereby further find that it is in the best interest of the city to establish SSA 2019A for the public interest and benefit of the properties. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, Incorporation of Preambles. The corporate authorities hereby find that all the recitals contained in the preambles of this ordinance are full, true, and correct, and do incorporate them into this ordinance by this reference. Section 2, Public Hearing. Public hearing shall be held by the corporate authorities at 6 p.m. on November 19th, 2019 at East Peoria City Hall, 401 West Washington Street, East Peoria, Illinois, to consider the creation of SSA 2019A in the territory comprised of the properties, the undertaking of the project special services, the levy of property taxes in SSA 2019A, the city incurring debt or issuing bonds to finance the project for SSA 2019. Such matters are further described in the notice, the public hearing. Section 3, Notice of Public Hearing. The notice of public hearing shall be in substantially the form set forth in Exhibit C and given by mailing and publication as provided herein the notice. The notice shall be given by publication in newspaper and general circulation in the city at least 15 days prior to the date of the public hearing. The notice shall also be given by United States mail to the person or persons in whose name the general property taxes were paid in the last preceding year on the properties. Section 4, Rate of SSA. Proposed SSA tax to be levied on the properties shall be, in addition to all other taxes, shall be levied upon the equalized assessed value of the properties in an amount not to exceed an annual rate of 1 1/2%, 1.5%, or $1.50 per $100 of equalized assessed valuation of the properties for a period of no longer than 10 years. Section 5, Nature of the SSA tax. The revenues from the proposed SSA tax will be used to fund the project's special services as provided under the SSA Act, primarily including the repair and improvement of the Access Road 6 and adjacent stormwater drainage areas and sewers along Access Road 6 at a total cost estimated to not exceed $400,000 and shall be used to pay any indebtedness incurred by the city to finance the construction of the project for a period of no longer than 10 years. Section 6, Superseder, effective date. All ordinances, resolutions, motions, or orders in conflict with the provisions of the ordinance are, to the extent of such conflict, hereby repealed. This ordinance shall become effective upon its adoption. Section 7, Severability. If any section, paragraph, clause, or provisions of this ordinance shall be held invalid, the invalidity of such section, paragraph, clause, or provision shall not affect any of the other provisions of this ordinance.
Thank you, Morgan. Sorry that you had to read so much. I'm going to pass this to Ty in just a second, but first, this is an area of town, Access Road 6, way out North Main, next to Centennial Drive. A road that has quite a few businesses on it. In fact, if you've not driven back there, there probably are quite a few more businesses than you realize. But here recently, especially at the end, there is a high-traffic business that's come in, and we certainly appreciate that in the city of East Peoria. But the road is not to the condition that not only they would like it, but we would like it either. Having said that, we can't give a guarantee as when we will be able to get to it. So having said that, the owners of the road have decided that they would like to go ahead and build a road that is good enough for them, and they have taken on that debt, or they will be paying for that debt themselves through the taxing process. Let Ty talk about the details for that.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. And this has been something that we've been working on with these property owners for quite some time. I know that you and I have been in meetings with them for the last 4 or 5 years or longer. So it's been an ongoing concern. I think the key with this is the city is facilitating this process. We're not participating financially. So in this case, we're looking to establish this SSA. It's a mechanism that allows us to put it on the property tax, so that actually the county will collect it for us. So this is why this makes sense, as opposed to the city doing another process and somehow being on the hook for the loan or what have you. This kind of facilitates it. It's a legal mechanism that's put in place. All of the participants are willing participants. They're looking to have this happen. They're willing to pay for this 10 years to get this road improved. It's that important to them. And I think that one of the reasons why we had to read it at length tonight is because we wanted to give them a fighting chance to get this road done yet this year. It's that important to them. They really want to get this completed before the winter comes. So this reading tonight will give us the opportunity to get that ball rolling and get something going there.
I'll tell you, I really appreciate the business owners on this road. They've been very patient with the city. I've spoken with most up here on the council about this road in particular, and everybody would like to have fixed it ourselves quite a while ago. But I think as everybody's heard us talk about, trying to stretch out all of our dollars to take care of all of our roads in the city has been difficult. I do appreciate the business owners. Obviously, they make a lot of revenue, but they bring a lot of revenue to the city. So I appreciate them being here, and we always try to do as much as we can for the businesses themselves. But I appreciate in this circumstances them working together to get this accomplished.
Well said. Discussion?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Decker, I got a couple questions. I think I want to see this road replaced as much as anybody, but I wasn't at any of the meetings that you guys were talking about. Is there any old, and I'm sure, I hope there's not, old sewer or storm or water that needs to be replaced before we do this road?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head.
Mr. Dennis, can you answer that one?
I know as part of this project, we did have one of the engineers look at the storm sewers and some of the drainage that's there, and we have identified that there are items that have to be fixed as part of this project. Beyond that, we haven't had any issues that we're aware of that's caused us to have to address anything. So I don't know that I have a perfect answer for you, because I can't tell you what the age is of the water or the sewer lines that are there, or exactly what is there.
Well, I would think that it would be pretty dumb of us to put a brand-new road over something that needs to be repaired. I think that would be the next step immediately, to see if there's any infrastructure that needs to take place on that road. And I do know that there's a problem with this culverts going across the road. It's been ongoing for years because of lack of maintenance, and that was lack of maintenance on the city's part. Anytime you drive down a road and you see cattails about 12 feet tall, then that means that there's standing water where there shouldn't be standing water normally, especially if it's in a drainage ditch going to another drainage ditch. And that hurts the road. So I would hate to see a new road go in and those things not being taken care of. So you guys have got my support. I just want it fixed right, that's all.
Okay, point taken. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, next, Mayor. Resolution number 1920-060, be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois. The resolution number 1920-060, hereto attached, a resolution to approve contract for engineering services with Midwest Engineering Associates for Camp Street, River Road, signalized intersection improvements, be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move you that this resolution number 1920-060 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. This one, as everybody remembers us speaking in detail about the potential roundabout at Camp and River, through that process, recognized that the public did not want to see that. We worked through, and I thank the mayor for a lot of the work he did on that, working through the process with our PUETS funding. We were able to get to the point where we were still able to use PUETS money, but then the money that we would not use from it being a roundabout can be then used by other entities. So this is not the original intention. Let me back up a bit. The original intention was to improve a potentially dangerous situation and stacking up or backing up of cars. With the engineer's estimates, may not go quite as far as the roundabout would have. However, it does make significant improvements. So for that, we're very happy, and it is a lot less expensive than what the roundabout would have been. So Mr. Rob Culp's in the audience tonight from Midwest Engineering. If we have any questions, we can ask him. But Ty, I know I was talking with you earlier. Dennis, if either of you have anything you'd like to say about this, please feel free.
So the agreement here with Midwest Engineering reflects that change in position that the council says, the signalized intersection is really the way that we'd like to go. So the changes here are driven by, it's a significant change from a roundabout to a signalized intersection. If to go back and work through the process, we've gone through the process with PUETS. Now it's IDOT and FHWA and going through their required processes. And it's not as simple as just saying, hey, we changed our mind, we're doing this. They've got to submit new plans, and certainly Rob can speak more articulately to that than I can, but that's really what's driving this here. And also we've got this tight timeline that if we're going to be able to get the approvals done and get the whatever additional right-of-ways required to be acquired, we have to go through their process before we can do that. And to get this to coincide with the Murray-Baker Bridge project next year, the stars are aligning here, and we really got to move forward with this. So that's what prompts us tonight.
A couple of the thoughts. It is our intention, when this is all said and done, that when you come off of the Bob Michael Bridge and turn left, that you will ultimately be able to then turn left into Embassy Suites, which was the city's intention all along. Hopefully that will be accomplished. It still has to be approved through IDOT, but we believe it will. Also, when you are coming from the Walmart area and then turning onto by Bob Michael Bridge, if I'm correct, there will be two lanes going to the right. Is that correct?
Two left lanes. And then
Double
one
left,
right.
double left coming
And
off of
one
Camp
right.
going to the Bob Michael.
Could you repeat that? I'm
A
sorry.
double left
Double left.
coming off of Camp Street going on to the River Road to the Bob Michael, and then a free-flowing right turn lane in front of Huck's. Right now, if you have a couple of cars going straight in that right lane to go to Walmart, you're out of luck and you've got to sit and wait. This would provide a free-flowing, and it retains all of the pedestrian crossings that exist there today. The roundabout project was going to eliminate at least one of them, and so I'm pleased with that, given that we've got two trails kind of coming together at that location between the riverfront and the River Trail, Illinois.
Ty was talking about that earlier today with me. That is a benefit of this. With the roundabout, we would have lost that, the ability for pedestrians to move through there as freely. But the purpose of this in general is to, one, make that intersection less dangerous, but one of the most dangerous intersections in central Illinois, as I've mentioned before, is actually the intersection at the base of Bob Michael Bridge. And the intention is by making this safer, it will also make that intersection safer as well. When cars stack less, there's less congestion, less traffic, will cause people hopefully to not be quite as aggressive and try to get through there at times that they should not. So hopefully this will fix a lot of problems, but ultimately it will go from the original plan, still being able to utilize dollars that aren't necessarily all the city's dollars, and still make improvements to the intersection.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Very good. Commissioner Sutherland.
I have nothing.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Mingus.
I have two items, Your Honor. I hope everyone's comfortable because clerk will be reading one of them at length, and it is quite lengthy. Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4456 hereto attached, an ordinance amending Title 9, Title 10, and Title 11 of the East Peoria City Code to accommodate the adult use of recreational cannabis pursuant to state law, be read at length by the clerk, and the said ordinance number 4456 be accepted on its first reading and hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Morgan?
Whereas the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act 410 ILCS 705-1 et sec, the act, which takes effect on January 1st, 2020, permits the lawful possession and use of recreational cannabis for persons 21 years of age and older, whereas the act provides immunity from arrest, prosecution, or civil penalty for persons 21 years of age or older lawfully possessing and using cannabis in accordance with the act. And whereas the City of East Peoria finds that the provisions of the East Peoria City Code should be amended as provided herein to allow for the lawful possession and use of cannabis in accordance with the act. And whereas the City of East Peoria further finds that it is in the best interest of the city and for health, safety, and welfare of its citizens to revise the East Peoria City Code as provided herein to not allow the possession and use of cannabis that is not otherwise in accordance with the act. And whereas the City of East Peoria also seeks to update the towing and impound fee provisions of the city code to comply with the current state of the law as to which criminal offenses allow for the collection of these towing and impound fees. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, Title 9, Chapter 7, Section 22C of the East Peoria City Code is hereby amended to read as follows. Additions are indicated by underline, deletions by strikeout. 9-7-22, nuisance property, definitions. 1, nuisance property. Nuisance property shall be property upon which 3 or more of the offenses listed below have occurred during any 365-day period as a result of any 3 or more separate and distinct offenses. D, possession, cultivation, manufacture, or delivery of cannabis is defined in 720 ILCS 550/1 et sec, or similar city ordinance, except as authorized by the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. Sale, delivery, or possession of drug paraphernalia as defined in 720 LCS 600/1 et sec, or a similar city ordinance except as authorized by Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. Section 2, Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 4.17 of the East Peoria City Code is hereby amended to read as follows. Additions are indicated by underline, deletions by strikeout. 10-1-4.17, possession, sale, and delivery of cannabis, look-alike substances, synthetic alternative drugs, and drug paraphernalia are prohibited. E, exemption. Person charged with violation of this section may assert the following exemptions as an affirmative defense. 1, this section does not apply to a person who is legally authorized to possess hypodermic syringes or needles under the Hypodermic Syringes and Needles Act. 2, this section does not apply to any person or entity who is authorized to possess, keep for sale, offer for sale, sell, or deliver for any commercial consideration cannabis, a controlled substance, a look-alike substance, synthetic alternative drug, or drug paraphernalia pursuant to the Illinois Controlled Substances Act, 720 ILCS 570-101 et sec. The Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act, 410 ILCS 130/1 et sec. The Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. The Cannabis Control Act, 720 ILCS 550/1 et sec, or in another provision of Illinois statute. G, adult use of cannabis. It is unlawful for any person 21 years of age or older to possess, use, display, purchase, or transport drug paraphernalia or cannabis in violation of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, 720 LCS 705/1 et sec. The Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act, 410 ILCS 130/1 et sec. The Cannabis Control Act, 720 ILCS 550/1 et sec, and the Drug Paraphernalia Control Act, 720 ILCS 600-1 et sec. Notwithstanding the foregoing, it shall not be unlawful for any person who is 21 years of age or older to possess cannabis or cannabis paraphernalia in accordance with the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. An individual is presumed to be acting lawfully and in compliance with this section and with the provisions of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act when such an individual is a resident of the state and is in possession of cannabis in an amount not exceeding 30 grams of cannabis flower, 500 milligrams of THC contained in cannabis-infused product, 5 grams of cannabis concentrate as those terms are defined in the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. An individual is presumed to be acting lawfully and in compliance with this section and the provisions of the Act when such individual is not a resident of the state and is in possession of cannabis in an amount not exceeding 15 grams of cannabis flower, 250 milligrams of THC contained in cannabis-infused product, 2.5 grams of cannabis concentrate as those terms are defined in the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec. The possession limits of this subsection G are to be considered cumulative. Notwithstanding, in this section, G shall be construed to permit possession or use of cannabis in a manner prohibited or otherwise inconsistent with this section or the provisions of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. Shall be unlawful for any person aged 21 years and older to possess an amount of cannabis in excess of the amounts prescribed by the section and the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. No person may possess cannabis in the passenger area of any motor vehicle except in a sealed, tamper-evident cannabis container that is reasonably inaccessible while the vehicle is moving. The use of cannabis in any public place within the city of East Peoria is prohibited. Nothing in this subsection G shall be construed to permit possession or use of drug paraphernalia in a manner prohibited or otherwise inconsistent with this section. The provisions of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act 410 ILCS 705/1 et sec, or the Drug Paraphernalia Control Act 720 ILCS 600/1 et sec. Notwithstanding the provisions of this section, it is unlawful to possess any drug paraphernalia item if the person in possession thereof knows or reasonably should know that it can be used in violation of this section or the Drug Paraphernalia Control Act 720 ILCS 600/1 et sec. Section 3, Title 11, Chapter 13, Section 1 of the East Peoria City Code is hereby amended to read as follows. Additions are indicated by underlined, deletions by strikeout. 11-13-1 Impoundment of motor vehicles used in connection with illegal activities. A, impoundment. A motor vehicle operated with the express or implied permission of the owner of record that is used in connection with any of the following violations or which may jeopardize the public safety and safe vehicular movement and in furtherance of public safety or in the exercise by the police department of its community caretaker functions may be subject to tow and impoundment by the city, and the owner of record of said vehicle shall be liable to the city for an administrative and processing fee of $500 in addition to any towing and storage fees. B, violations. 3, operation or use of a motor vehicle in connection with the commission or attempted commission of any offense in violation of the provisions of the Illinois Cannabis Control Act 720 ILCS 550/1 et sec, provided, however, that no vehicle shall be subject to impound or forfeiture solely for the possession of cannabis by persons 21 years of age or older in accordance with the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. Further, no vehicle shall be subject to impound or forfeiture for the possession of medical cannabis by a registered qualifying patient or registered designated caregiver, as those terms are defined in the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act 410 ILCS 130/1 et sec, where such possession is in compliance with the provisions of this act, or 5, operation or use of motor vehicle while soliciting, possessing, or attempting to solicit or possess a controlled substance as defined by the Illinois Controlled Substances Act 720 ILCS 570/100 et sec, or 6, operation or use of a motor vehicle while soliciting, possessing, or attempting to solicit or possess cannabis in violation of the Cannabis Control Act 720 ILCS 550/1 et sec, or 7, unlawful use of a weapon in violation of 720 ILCS 5/24-1, aggravated discharge of a firearm in violation of 720 ILCS 5/24-1.5, and unlawful possession of a firearm and firearm ammunition in violation of 720 ILCS 5/24-3.1, or 6 or 8, driving while driver's license permitted or privileged to operate a motor vehicle suspended or revoked in violation of 620 ILCS 5/6-303, except that vehicle shall not be subject to seizure, impoundment if the suspension is for an unpaid citation, parking or moving, or due to failure to comply with emission testing. Or 9, operation or use of motor vehicle with an expired driver's license in violation of Section 6-101, the Illinois Vehicle Code 625 ILCS 5/6-101, where the period of expiration is greater than 1 year, or 10, operation or use of a motor vehicle without ever having been issued a driver's license or permit in violation of Section 6-101, the Illinois Vehicle Code 625 ILCS 5/6-101, or operate a motor vehicle without ever having been issued a driver's license or permit due to a person's age, or 11, operation or use of a motor vehicle by a person against whom a warrant has been issued by a circuit clerk in Illinois for failing to answer charges that the driver violated the offenses of driving while license is revoked or suspended, 625 ILCS 5/6-303, operating a motor vehicle without a valid driver's license, 625 LCS 5/6-101, and/or driving under influence of alcohol, other drugs, intoxicating compounds, or a combination thereof, 625 ILCS 5/11-501, or 12, operation or use of a motor vehicle in connection with the commission or attempted commission of any other misdemeanor or felony offense in violation of the Criminal Code of 2012, 720 ILCS 5/1-1 at sec. 13, operation or use of a motor vehicle in violation of Section 11-503 of the Illinois Vehicle Code, 625 ILCS 5/11-503, A, while the vehicle is part of a funeral procession, or B, in a manner that interferes with a funeral procession. Section 4, if any provision or provisions of this ordinance shall be held to be unconstitutional or otherwise illegal, such unconstitutionality or illegality shall not affect the validity of remaining parts of this ordinance, and the city hereby declares it would have passed the remaining parts of this ordinance in any event had it known that such part provisions or provisions might be unenforceable because unconstitutional or illegal. Section 5, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the East Peoria City Clerk, and said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 6, this ordinance is in addition to all other ordinances on the subject and shall be construed therewith, excepting as to that party or conflict with any other ordinance. In the event of such conflict, the provisions hereof shall govern. Section 7, after its passage, approval, and 10-day period of publication in a manner provided by law, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect beginning January 1st, 2020.
You hit your breath, Morgan. That was it. Commissioner Rings?
Thank you, Morgan. That was lengthy. Basically, these are ordinances that are being asked to be approved that will make our ordinances or the code within our laws match what the state's laws are. So basically, it's bringing our code up to date with the legislation that was passed, making recreational marijuana legal in the state of Illinois. I went through and read the whole packet to my knowledge, and unless somebody wants to correct me if I'm wrong, these are all things that we would be passing whether or not we approved the zoning change earlier this meeting.
Yeah, that's correct. This brings us in compliance with state law, make sure our ordinances regarding nuisances, possession, and impoundment are within the confines of the new law. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
No.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you.
One additional item, Your Honor. It's resolution number 1920-059. Whereas amendments to the Emergency Telephone System Act 50 ILCS 750 mandated the consolidation of the current existing 4 911 dispatch centers serving Tazewell County down to 2 dispatch centers, the consolidated mandate. And whereas the City Council has previously approved an intergovernmental agreement with Pekin, Washington, Morton, Tazewell County, the Tazewell County Sheriff's Office, and the Tazewell County Emergency Telephone Systems Boards, also the parties, in accordance with the consolidation mandate. And whereas in the terms of the agreement, the parties agreed to work cooperatively to establish an intergovernmental agency named TC3 for the purpose of providing 911 dispatch services in Tazewell County. And whereas the agreement provides that TC3 is to be governed by a governance board and that daily operations of TC3 are managed by an operations committee. And whereas the agreement further provides that the governance board and operations committee are each to be comprised of representatives of municipalities affected by the consolidation mandate. And whereas pursuant to the agreement and bylaws attached as Exhibit B, thereto the City of East Peoria has 2 seats on the Governance Board and 2 seats on the Operations Committee. And whereas consistent with the mayor's recommendation, the city desires to appoint Chief of Police Stephen Rogie as one of the city's representatives on the TC3 Operations Committee to replace the city's representative position that was most recently held by the retired Deputy Chief of Police Shannon Swearingen. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, the Chief of Police Stephen Rogie is hereby appointed as one of the city's representatives on the TC3 Operations Committee. Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number 1920-059 be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
This is placing Police Chief Steve Rogie on basically exactly what it said, replacing Deputy Chief Swearingen. He'll join Chief Beck from the Fire Department on this part of the TC3 board.
Well said. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland? Mayor
Aye.
Paul?
Aye. He said aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor. Sorry
Thank
about
you.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Very good. Any public comment? Anyone wishing to address the council on a non-agenda item, please step forward. Mr. Bassam?
I'm Billy Bassam, and I was going to build a garage at 310 Chicago Street, but I got a big stump right in my way. I've been working on it for like 3 weeks, trying to get these stumps out. So I'm getting ready to submit a plan again through zoning to put a garage back on 524 Monson, same as what I did before. And Mark, I was wondering, is there some thing that I need to know because you guys okay the garage on for the woodworking shop? Do I need to know something? I mean, that's 6 inches from the property, and I'm going to be 5 to 15 feet. And I'm residential. That's what you told me. But that near is supposed to be residential, but it's 6 inches from the property line. Is there some special thing I need to know?
I would have to look up that case and actually even put Ty on the spot. I'm not familiar with the woodworking shop case that you're referring to and why it's 6 inches off the property line.
So the primary distinction between the cases here is that we have a principal structure on this lot that's a house. The other property had a home on it, it was knocked down, so it has no other function, and in that zoning district, as we've discussed with the council, and something that publicly needs to have probably some more debate, is the zoning classification that we have in the Richland neighborhood creates some of these conflicts where you can't have a commercial use and a residential use on the same zoning lot. But in the case with the shop that he's mentioning, this is a standalone parcel of property that has no other uses on it. And that was the distinction when it was presented to zoning board. They were supportive of the concept of placing this structure on the lot and even getting closer to property lines and normal setbacks would permit.
Okay, the normal setbacks for the residential property is 7 feet?
So for an accessory structure would be 5 feet off the lot line,
Okay.
off the rear and side lot line, to be clear.
So if I tore down the house, I can put a bigger garage on my property. Is that what you're saying?
So then you would no longer have this conflict of use, between the residential on the site as well as having a commercial operation. So that would be one item. The other piece is once again, the appropriateness of the size of the building. And I think that's, when we look at this on a special use case, there is a 1,250 square feet maximum. You go beyond that, there is a special use process to review that, but it's designed so that the council and the zoning board can take a look at the context of how it fits within the neighborhood, specifically where it's located.
Because this house is so crooked, I'll tear it down. I mean, it ain't no big deal. But you got that property, the building 5 inches off the property line. And mine's 5 and 15 feet off the property line. And it's, I forgot, 100 feet, 150 feet from the back of the house. And I still have 50, 75 feet behind the garage to the property line. So I got plenty of room for this structure. And I don't understand why, you know, everything's gonna be inside, because here we got the prop shop with a bunch of junk cars and nobody policing it. Who's supposed to be policing the prop shop with these junk cars? They've been there for 10 years. Who's supposed to be policing that, Mark?
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement? John, didn't Joe just said he didn't do it? We was at that meeting. Now, and we complained about the one on Farmington Towing's they got cars on their property, and they've been there for 5 to 10 years. But yet, I have a truck that ran, and my neighbor tore it up, so I took it to the farm, because I was gonna put a antique truck frame on that Dodge truck frame. So here, code enforcement just said that he don't regulate it, but now you're saying he does. Then how come it ain't been taken care of? And then, now you guys just passed,
Hey, Bill, just calm down. Take a breath here.
the containers down on the old sandblast place. No problem, you know? But yet, I want a garage to put my stuff inside. It's a problem. I'm gonna submit my plan again. We'll see what happens. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are those two lots that you're talking about, are they side by side? Are they
No, they're not.
They're not, okay.
No, they're not. And just for the record, the zoning board, the size of the garage was the issue. I watched that meeting, and I know they recommended that you come back before them with one that meets the criteria. Whether you agree or disagree, ultimately, they're the ones that decide at that level whether or not to approve it, and they didn't approve
Yeah, a
it.
guy could have one 6 inches from a property line? I mean, that's ridiculous. He should have made him buy another lot in order to put a bigger building on. I mean, and those guys don't even live down in the bottoms. I live in the bottoms. I was born and raised down there.
Bill, you're getting
Nobody else is.
Okay, you're getting upset. All right, thanks for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the council on a non-agenda item? Mr. Sales?
Yes, I'd like to address the last city council meeting. I didn't have an opportunity to be here because of a previous engagement, although I did watch it online. I watched Commissioner Mingus's passionate argument for a new fire truck, which the city at this time can't afford. And in my opinion, the reason we can't afford these items or new roads is because our workman's comp cost. I've done a FOIA request on the 11th. I have not had that material in my hand yet, but I think we're somewhere in $250,000 workman's comp claims paid out since this council was seated. And this is not something new. This has been going on for the last 12 years of the excessive workman's comp cost. And if you go through and look through the records, you'll find just a handful of employees that every 2 to 3 years, they're getting $50,000, $60,000. And I'm going to challenge this council, let's get a handle on this. There's no private sector that pays out the amount of money in workman's comp that we're paying out. So there's a failing somewhere, either in the process or the safety training, but whatever it needs to be handled so there's more money for the average citizens in East Peoria.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Anyone else wish to address the council on a non-agenda item? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name's Rick Martin. I've lived at 325 Oakwood Avenue since 1985. I'd just like to make 2 points as what's on my mind tonight. The first one is it stems around when Hill Road took out the bridge, and where I live is directly across the street from a school, Woodrow Wilson. Okay, the bridge went down. I'm not sure what year. Mike, Dan, I'm sure you guys would have a better handle on that. But what's important is at that time, I had grandkids that lived over on Russell. Okay? And once again, I live directly across the street from a grade school. When they took the bridge down, here came the traffic. And if you're not familiar with that stretch, it's like a straightaway at Indianapolis. At least a lot of people believe that. So I laid back and watched it and watched it and watched it. Finally, my blood pressure got to the point where I called down to the police department. It wasn't under your administration, but I did call down there twice. The way I saw it, and I'm not going to debate it or whatever, but it's kind of a common sense approach. If you've got kids and somebody has called and complained, you know, I retired in January. So now more than ever, I see what's going on. 7 o'clock in the morning, you can set your watch. Here comes a motorcycle to start my morning off, tearing up that road. And I get it, the kids ain't in school and everything else. But I ain't here to argue or debate. But, you know, I'm going to make a point here to try to make a point on something else. Number one, if you're going to take a bridge out, what's your plan? What exactly is your plan? Now, I understand saving money. We can't afford it. You know, I understand that. I have a house. I get it. I get that. But something that is really non-economical, and you say, well, how can it be non-economical? If you've got police officers that are on duty and you've had one complaint, which I ended up complaining twice, and like I said, it wasn't more recently, it was when this all went down. As a taxpayer, I expect somebody to take notice of it. I mean, what's it going to take? First thing in the morning, here come the buses. Here goes a kid that got sideways, and the next thing you know, they're down on the pavement. Accidents happen. We hear about it on TV all the time about how somebody was hit. And I'm not trying to paint an ugly picture here, but in 2013, I was in a terrible accident myself. I walked out of Kroger's that I'd been cutting meat all my life, and just before I got to the truck, that was the year of the tornado, a box truck with all kinds of debris in it came around the corner, took his eyes off the road, and I took a direct hit right here. It changed my life. You say, well, you know, and I'm a proud person. I don't feel that I should have to share this with anybody, but if it saves one person's life, if it changes one thing, if it gets one person's attention, then I feel that my visit tonight is successful. I've sat there morning after morning, afternoon, evening after evening, and you would think Oakwood Avenue being a main drag down there, that would be on somebody's radar. Somebody's radar. They've stuck signs in front of the school, be careful, children, or whatever.
Go ahead and finish up, sir.
Well, okay, I think I've made that point. Number two, I think I would be doing some of the police officers and firemen of this local community a disjustice if I don't at least speak what's on my mind as far as the marijuana. Dan, I coached your dad in church softball. I had more respect for him than you'll ever know because you would have been so young that you wouldn't remember, but I coached him. My son's a Peoria firefighter. I know what kind of character it takes I know what kind of character it takes to become on these types of departments. My dad's the oldest living East Peoria police officer currently at the age of 90. He's the oldest one. You say, okay, well, what's my point? My point is that I had to come home from school day after day after day listening to stories, okay? First of all, we'll go with gambling. You know, I understand what's going on here. I get it. I get it. You know, things change, economics change, but moral issues don't change. Moral issues do not change. I've got a moral obligation to those grandkids that I talked about earlier that I can't change my beliefs about certain things, and I think we're all adults here. You know what I'm talking about. They since moved away from East Peoria, not just because of that one issue that I just named, but because of a lot of issues. But Dad has told me stories all the way to the point where he broke in down in the bottoms down there where there was illegal gambling going on. You say, okay, what's your point? It's legal now. Okay, I'm trying to bring it like this here. If you've got a moral obligation as a police officer to uphold the law, and the law of the land says at that time there will be no gambling. He bust into place after place after place, and I remember the story like it was yesterday, at gunpoint. You know, there's been times where to do his job, he would have been at gunpoint. Drugs, the number of stories that, okay, let me summarize this here. What's going to be the plan? We take out a bridge on Hill Road, and as far as I can see, there wasn't any kind of resolution made, and that's a bridge. Now, we're all adults. We know that potentially things can happen. I'm not going to say they're going to happen because I'm not a gypsy. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. I'd be making money some out here telling you your future. But we all know potentially what can happen. What are we going to do? What are we going to do at that point?
Sir, I need you to wrap up your point. I have to be respectful of time for everyone else, okay?
I understand that, and I apologize for that. But it's like I said, it's not my style to come here and to do this here. And as a finishing note, you know, I think just like I said before, I called down there twice. I believe you get it, and I appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to address the council on a non-agenda item?
Go ahead. I promise, my name's Joyce Brooks, and I promise I won't get mad like Bill. But I want to tell you that I live next door to the house where he wants to put the garage, and I think he should be allowed to put it there because at least he'll have something to put his equipment in there because he helps us out a lot as senior citizens because he plows snow for us and everything else with his equipment. He don't just use it for his work, he uses it to help other people too. And I just wish that you'd let him build the building.
Well, here's my recommendation. It sounds like he's going to go before the ZBA again, is what he stated here tonight. So I encourage you to attend the meeting with him and speak your piece to the ZBA.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Mr. Sinks?
Where's Edgewood Drive?
Edgewood, it's up off Fond du Lac Drive.
Go up High School Hill, it's, probably,
Okay,
yeah.
got you there. You go up the hill and then you turn back behind the football field, back up in there?
Yeah,
Go up the
parallels
hill,
that.
take a right on Fond du Lac, and it's down off on your right-hand side.
Okay. Got a question about the last one. How many miles is on these fire trucks that you claim's junk?
You know, sir, it's not as much. Not only are there a significant number of miles, meaning over 100,000 miles, it's the hours is the biggest concern. These trucks have, as far as powertrains, their usable life is they're beyond it, frankly.
By
The
whose
other-
standards, sir?
Industry standards, meaning we have standards that we have to work by, that we have to abide by, and we can put ourselves into a,
So the New York City Fire Commission that writes the fire code, or helps write it, writes these standards for Podunk Junction, Illinois. Is that what you're telling me?
no, sir.
Okay, explain yourself then. What are you telling me?
Why don't we get together and we'll talk about it, but the code, I'm sorry, the rules that we need to play by when it comes to fire equipment are pretty specific. And it's because we've got lives that are on those trucks, lives that are depending on those trucks. So from my perspective, to sit here and tell you that a 96 and a 2000 model year trucks are worth spending the kind of money that we're talking about spending on them is a disservice. That was the entire point of the conversation. I would just as soon not go in and put Band-Aids on them. I would just as soon not waste the money. However, as you're aware, I work for these 5 gentlemen, and I'm going to do what they tell me to do.
Yeah, you also work for me as a taxpayer.
Correct, and we work for these 5,
Yeah.
and that's who I report to.
So, okay, that's what I wanted to know. I mean, if you got something rules you got to go by, that's fine. But when your city is bone broke, you know, I understand you want whatever to keep the fire trucks going. I understand all that. But by the flip side of that, you know, the buck stops at the taxpayer. At what point in time is this buck going to stop? Because there's right on the internet today, there's a little town here in Illinois that's about to go belly up because of the pension plans. I'm not saying just police, firemen, I'm saying the pension plans for the whole city. Okay, it's just one thing, all right? So you add another, I don't know, 2 fire trucks, $500,000, probably, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. And you put that on top of the $150 million that we're already in Hawk, and we're a month into this new sewer plant, and we already got a $52,000 change order, and that just these first phases supposed to last, what, 3 years? So if it goes $50,000 a month on each change, what are we talking? $1 million or more? I haven't really done the math, but whatever. So I'm not saying you're wrong in wanting what you want. I don't mean that. But at what point in time are you people going to quit pissing this money away that the taxpayers ain't got to pay? I asked up here one time, I said, do you have a money tree in your backyard? I never did get an answer. I've talked to a lot of people around town. I said, you got a money tree in your backyard? They said, no. I said, well, I ain't either. But the city talks like everybody's got a money tree. You know, at some point in time, when the city goes belly up, the bondholders will get their money at whatever the cost. Look at Harvey. Do you want that for this town? Do you guys want that for this town? Do you? I don't. I want the town to go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else wishing to address the council on a non-agenda item? Seeing no one else. Comments from the council. Commissioner Decker.
Mr. Martin, I have known him since I was a little kid. He is a very good person. His family are very good people. In fact, I used to cut through their yard on my way to school in the morning. I'd climb the fence, and I don't know if he knew that at the time. I'm sure he did. But very good family. I appreciate what he was saying. I would like to talk about Hill Road just for a second because it's kind of fallen off the radar. It wasn't removed, but it was deemed too dangerous at the time. The blacktop was pulling away from the guardrails, making a situation where there were holes between the surface and the guardrail. So a car going through there, if got too close, would have pulled the car toward the guardrail, which is the reason we closed it in the first place. Just as soon as we did, we heard a outcry of the public to open that back up. And it was always my hope to open it back up. And actually, I believed we would. But At the time, the cost for a bridge replacement was, I think, about $500,000. There were other options to look at, other less expensive but still expensive options. It just became something that was not supported when we got to the budget process. I still believe there should be a road there. Unfortunately, now it's gotten to the point where the road itself would probably have to take quite a bit of service to get it back up to the point that we could use it. My fear is East Side in general. With East Side having such large events, having Hill Road open, I think would make East Side itself safer. But I say that because I would love to redo that. I do think it's needed. The last council, it kind of, I guess, fell off the radar. I'd like to put it back on the radar. I'm not saying that I can say what money we should put toward it, but I do believe that it would be best if there were a hill there, a road there for the people of that highway village to utilize, especially when East Side itself was too busy. I think it'd make the whole area safer. So, Mayor, he's raising his hand. Is that?
Oh,
I'll leave it up to you.
Just make it quick if you don't mind.
Okay,
Yeah.
the only thing I got to say is, could we even consider a speed bump? And that's all I got to say.
I will talk with Rick about that. Just to be honest, his fear has always been having speed bumps could cause people to lose control and then potentially go up into yards. But I'll talk to him about other ways that we could look at. There are some other ways, not necessarily speed bumps, that we can look at traffic slowing. I do agree with you. The road he's talking about, you all probably know where it is. It is an opportunity, I guess, or lack of a better word, for people running late in the morning to use that as a very fast road. They should not. There's a school right across the street from his house, and it can be very dangerous. So I understand what he's saying. I will talk to Rick about trying to figure out other ways of slowing traffic. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Hill?
I have two things tonight, Mayor. The first thing is that, the last couple meetings, the code enforcement has been taking some heat, some feedback. And one of the things I think that was stated in our last meeting that may leave a incorrect impression of our code enforcement, and that is nowhere in our city code does it say we selectively enforce code enforcement is by complaint only. There was a very strong statement last meeting that said we only do it by complaint only. If you can't track it to an individual and a name and a phone number, then you should do something about that. And that is totally incorrect. So I think we as a city have an obligation to all of the citizens to enforce our code and ordinances, and that is not by complaint only. And the city in itself can, as we drive around as city officials or any part of the city staff, if you see code violations, we're not to ignore those. We can't ignore those for the rest of the people. With that being said, I just wanted to clarify that because it was stated, and I don't want everybody to go on thinking that everything that's ever code enforced. And one of the things that some statements of, do we have some code enforcement going on in Richland community? Yes, we do. Do we have code enforcement going on throughout the city? Yes, we do. I've been given some numbers that I didn't have last week, but there's been 463 notices of code violation, and that's actually in the first step, 463 within the city. And out of those, the percentage for Richland community is 15.7. So is that disproportionate for the community or for that neighborhood in relation to others? Maybe, but there's 84% of our code violations are somewhere else in the city besides Richland community. So I just wanted to, the code enforcement's a no-win situation. It's, the guys that are enforcing it take a lot of heat. So one of the things that, Robert Cole and Ty Livingston have presented me a new process that we're going to be implementing, and that has to do with code violation appeal. If there's going to be, go out to the website, And you can see the procedure on that, but it will be an administrative review that's available to citizens if they feel that their code violation is not fair or understand what's behind it. This administrative review will be involved with administrative people, code enforcement, administrative staff, hopefully myself or other commissioners and possibly even the mayor to sit down and have an open dialogue on what the code violation may be. So with that being said, that's all I'm going to say about this. I'm going to end on a more positive note. The East Peoria Historical Society's annual ice cream social, it's this Saturday. It is the fundraiser, all proceeds go to the East Peoria Historical Society, and it is here, right here in Civic Plaza. The tickets are $5 if anybody's interested. I've got tickets here, but if you're not doing anything from 12 to 3 on Saturday, it's the East Peoria Historical Society's annual Christmas social. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Sutherland.
Yes, I just got a couple of things. The new sewer treatment plant is approximately $66 million. I'm going to screw up on some of the numbers. There is a 6%.
We hope not. You're
There
on
is a-
public record.
There is 6% built in of contingency and changes. That's a lot of money. And I've tried to make it to,
It's 3, Mike, for the record.
okay, yeah, I told you I'd screw up on some of the numbers. 3%. I've tried to make it to most of the meetings that I could, which is, I've missed about half. They're very lengthy and they're in the middle of the day during my workday, and I apologize. But we hired a very competent person to represent the city of East Peoria there. So I am very conscious about the $52,000 extra that was already. But right now, at the beginning of this job, if you know anything about construction, it's the foundation going in now. That's where you can't see what's under the ground. That's where all the surprises lie. And hopefully that everything that we come up with problems in the future is not going to be a total surprise. It will be a matter of how the job is going, weather-wise and everything else, and how fast, how soon. Those are the kind of things that really drive a lot of the monies after you get out of the ground. And that $50-some thousand was a hidden surprise in the ground. I can't tell you about the workman's comp thing. I do know that I don't know in what field you're talking about. I don't know if it's the street side or the sewer or the water or the police or the fire. I don't know. But, you know, they're getting ready to work on McCluggage Bridge. And that takes off in earnest probably next spring. There's 3 to 4 people that are supposed to die during the construction of that bridge. That is how they look at it. That is what the insurance company is basing their stuff on. I was at a meeting, and that's exactly what I was told. That's scary. That's very possibly going to happen. And there's 45 construction workers in Illinois every year that lose their lives. And I understand, I would rather them be on workman's comp instead of dead. So if you're trying to say that there's somebody on workman's comp that shouldn't be on workman's comp, I would lend an ear to that. But I really don't know how you can control workman's comp unless there's a lie going on somewhere. Okay?
Commissioner Mingus.
I have nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Wow, made that quick. Just want to touch on a couple points. I know it's-
Morgan talked enough for
Yeah,
all of us tonight.
it's been a long meeting, but listen, I appreciate everybody's patience. I do want to touch on the public safety portion of this legalization of recreational marijuana. You go back to the May timeframe or so, the Illinois Sheriff's Association, and as many law enforcement, and the chief can speak to this better than anybody, they were opposed to legalizing this product, okay? End of the day, the state legalized it. So to put it in perspective, they had to shift gears no different than a lot of elected people. How are you going to cover your costs to enforce this? It will impact your community, hopefully not in a negative way, but at the end of the day, you still have enforcement. You have to train your public safety officials, and there's costs associated with that. So I just wanted to point out that that's part of the decision here this evening that you saw. We're going to ensure that we cover those costs, and then we move on from there. State made it legal, nobody up here did, so want to put that to rest. The other thing I wanted to touch on, the worker comp. So please understand, there's a difference between worker comp costs and I believe what you're referring to, which is settlements that the city pays out. This council will be taking a hard look at worker comp costs, and this council will be made aware of what those costs are, because the city has historically had some issues there. Right, wrong, and different, we're not going to debate how we got there, but we're going to address it. It's something that the city has honestly been looking at for about the last 4 years. So stay tuned on that. There's more to come, but you know, at the end of the day, it goes into state law. So until the state reforms some of the things that are allowed, it's a little difficult at this level for us to do much about it. But we are going to make 100% effort in trying to control those costs, better control them. So wanted to point that out. I too want to finish on a high note. I like to give out events that are coming up. So Farmers Market is this Friday, 4 to 7 p.m. The last one is September 27th from 4 to 7 p.m. This Friday, we have a Friday Night Lights with the cars down here in the Levy District. That's from 6 to 9. And then we had a classic car show scheduled, I believe, back in, I don't know, spring, Father's Day, so it was June, that was postponed due to weather. So that will be this Saturday down here in the Levy District from 4 to 7. So that kind of directly after the ice cream social here at Civic Plaza. So you can join us. And then the highest note, on Monday, Chief had the privilege of awarding one of his officers the life-saving award. And I want to recognize Officer Frank. Chief presented him with this award, and I think it's important for people to realize what our employees do throughout this city, and I'm going to do my best to make sure they get recognized. There was an elderly lady that was reported missing by her family, and he self-initiated a follow-up the following morning while he was on a shift. He was able to take a lead that he was given by a neighbor. He located her vehicle, subsequently searched the woods, and located her and essentially saved her life. So, Chief, I appreciate that you recognized him on Monday, and I want to make a point to recognize him tonight. Great job. So, I know he's not here, but great job.
Mayor, one other thing I would add, you forgot, sure. Tuesday is Tazewell County Cops, Cars, and Kids will be in the Levy District from 4 o'clock till 6:30. East Peoria officers, East Peoria Fire, Tazewell County, Fond du Lac Park District. There'll be a canine demonstration. There'll also be some superheroes that'll be reading for the Fond du Lac Library that'll be out here next to it. So that is Tuesday the 24th in the Levy District from 4 to 6:30, and we invite and encourage everybody to come down to it. There'll be all kinds of equipment down here for people to look at, and should be a fun event, especially for the kids.
Appreciate you bringing that up. Sorry I missed that. Okay, that's all I have. Seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn until Tuesday evening, October 1st, 2019 at 6 p.m.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Didn't think so. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. We're adjourned until we meet again.